Evelyn Marsh pulled open the doors of the dress case and stopped breathing for a moment. The space where her wedding gown should have been hanging was empty. Only a single silver hook swung gently back and forth, as if someone had just touched it and walked away in a hurry. She stood there in her dressing robe, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her own ears. The wedding was in 3 days. The final fitting was supposed to happen in exactly 1 hour. And the gown, the one gown that had been sewn by hand over 4 months, the one gown that carried her grandmother's lace on the sleeves, was gone. "Lily," she called out, her voice cracking. "Lily, come here right now." Her maid, a young woman named Lily Grant, rushed into the room, still holding a tray of morning tea. When she saw the open case and the empty space inside it, the tray shook in her hands and the porcelain cups rattled against each other. "My lady, it was here last night. I saw it myself before I locked the room." Evelyn turned to her, eyes wide with a fear she had never felt before. "Then where is it now?" Neither of them had an answer, and in that silence, the first crack in what was supposed to be a perfect wedding began to show itself. Evelyn Marsh was set to marry Julian Hartwell, a duke known across the county for his calm manner and his family's long history of fair leadership. Their wedding had been planned for almost a year. Guests were traveling from other cities. The chapel had already been decorated. Everything on paper looked flawless. But nothing about this morning felt flawless. Evelyn sat down slowly on the edge of her bed, trying to steady her breathing. She thought back to the night before, replaying every detail in her mind. She had gone to sleep early, exhausted from the endless list of wedding tasks. Lily had locked the door, just as she always did. No one else was supposed to have a key. "Who else has access to this room?" Evelyn asked quietly. Lily hesitated. "Only myself, my lady, and the housekeeper, and well, anyone who might have borrowed a key without saying." Evelyn's mind went still for a second. There was one name that had been sitting uncomfortably at the back of her thoughts for weeks now, a name she had tried to push away every time it surfaced. Camille Lane. Camille had once been close to Julian, long before Evelyn ever entered his life. Everyone at the manor spoke of her in careful, quiet tones, as if her name alone might stir something better left undisturbed. Evelyn had met her only once, at a small gathering weeks earlier, and the memory of that meeting had stayed with her longer than she wanted to admit. She remembered the way Camille had looked at Julian that night, not with simple friendliness but with something deeper, something that felt like a memory being replayed behind her eyes. Evelyn had noticed it immediately, though she said nothing at the time. She told herself it meant nothing. People have pasts. Pasts do not always matter. But now, standing in a room with an empty dress case and a stolen gown, it suddenly mattered a great deal. "Send word to the housekeeper," Evelyn said, standing up and trying to keep her voice steady. "I want every door checked, every window checked, and I want to know who came into this house last night." Lily nodded quickly and hurried out of the room, leaving Evelyn alone with her thoughts and the cold, empty case in front of her. She walked toward the window and looked out over the gardens, where workers were already setting up chairs for the ceremony. Everything outside looked so normal, so peaceful, completely unaware of the storm building inside the house. Evelyn pressed her hand against the glass and took a slow breath. She would not panic. She would not let herself fall apart 3 days before the most important moment of her life. She would find answers, and she would find them quickly. An hour later, the housekeeper arrived with a full report. No windows had been broken. No locks had been forced. Whoever took the dress either had a key or someone inside the house had let them in. Evelyn felt her stomach tighten at those words. It was not a break-in. It was something far more troubling. Someone she trusted, someone with access to her private space, had either taken the dress themselves or allowed another person to take it. She thought of Julian immediately, not because she suspected him of taking it himself, but because she needed him beside her now more than ever. She needed his calm voice, his steady hands, his reassurance that everything would be fixed before the ceremony. But when she sent word asking him to come to her, the response she received only deepened her unease. Julian was not at the manor. He had left early that morning before sunrise without telling anyone where he was going. Evelyn stood in the hallway holding the note from his assistant, reading it over and over as if the words might change if she looked at them long enough. Julian never left without telling someone. He was a man of routine, a man who valued order in everything he did. For him to vanish before dawn, on the very morning her dress disappeared, felt like more than a strange coincidence. She tried to push the thought away. There had to be a simple explanation. Perhaps he had gone to check on preparations at the chapel. Perhaps something urgent had come up with the estate. She told herself these things, but a small voice in the back of her mind refused to be quiet. By midday, word of the missing dress had spread quietly through the staff, though Evelyn had asked everyone to keep it contained. She could not risk the guests hearing rumors before the wedding even began. She sat in the drawing room, trying to focus on other tasks, seating charts and flower arrangements, anything to keep her hands busy while her mind spun in circles. It was then that her closest friend, Sophie Lawson, arrived, rushing into the room with worry written across her face. "Evelyn, is it true? The dress is gone." Evelyn nodded slowly, unable to find the strength to explain the full weight of what she was feeling. Sophie sat beside her and took her hand. "We will find it. Someone in this house knows something. Dresses do not simply disappear into thin air." "I know," Evelyn said quietly, "but I keep thinking about who could have done this, and why." Sophie's expression shifted slightly, and Evelyn noticed it immediately. "What is it?" Evelyn asked. "You know something." Sophie hesitated, glancing toward the door as if to make sure no one else was listening. "I did not want to say anything before the wedding. I did not want to cause you worry over something that might be nothing. But last week, I saw Camille Lane near the east wing of the manor, late in the evening. She told me she was simply passing through, visiting an old friend among the staff. I thought little of it at the time." Evelyn's chest tightened. The east wing was exactly where her dress had been kept. "Why would she be there?" Evelyn asked, though part of her already feared the answer. Sophie shook her head. "I do not know, but Evelyn, you should be careful. There has always been talk about her and Julian. I never wanted to repeat it to you because talk is often nothing more than talk, but given what has happened today, I think it is worth considering." Evelyn sat in silence for a long moment, staring at her hands. She thought of the gala weeks earlier, the way Camille had looked at Julian, the tension that had passed between them like a current neither of them acknowledged out loud. She thought of Julian's sudden disappearance that morning. She thought of the empty dress case and the swinging silver hook. Pieces were beginning to form a shape she did not want to see. "I need to speak with her," Evelyn said finally, her voice firm despite the fear rising inside her. "I need to know the truth, whatever it is." Sophie squeezed her hand gently. "Then let me come with you. You should not face this alone." Evelyn shook her head. "No, if there is something between them, I need to hear it directly, without anyone softening the words for my sake. I need the truth in its rawest form." She stood and smoothed the front of her dress, forcing her shoulders back despite the storm swirling inside her chest. Whatever waited for her at Camille's door, whatever secrets had been buried beneath polite smiles and careful silence, she was determined to uncover them before her wedding day arrived. As she stepped outside and into the waiting carriage, Evelyn glanced back once at the manor, its windows glowing warm and golden in the afternoon light. From the outside, it still looked like a house preparing for a joyful celebration. But inside, she carried a growing certainty that nothing about this wedding would be as simple as she had once believed. The carriage wheels began to turn, carrying her toward answers she both needed and feared. And somewhere across town, in a modest house tucked behind a row of tall hedges, Camille Lane sat by her window, watching the road, as if she too had been waiting for this moment to finally arrive. Evelyn did not yet know that the missing dress was only the beginning. She did not know that behind the walls of her own home, promises had been made long before she ever met Julian Hartwell, promises that had never truly been broken, only buried. And she did not know that the fire about to be lit, both in truth and in flame, would change the course of her life far more than any wedding ever could. The carriage moved steadily down the narrow road, past fields turning gold in the late afternoon light, but Evelyn saw none of it. Her mind was fixed entirely on the conversation waiting for her, on the questions she had rehearsed a dozen times in the short ride, and on the fear that the answers might break something inside her that could never be fully repaired. She reached up and touched the small locket at her neck, a gift from her late mother, the only piece of jewelry she wore every single day without fail. Her mother had once told her that the truth, no matter how painful, was always kinder in the end than a lie dressed up as comfort. Evelyn held onto those words now, repeating them silently as the hedges of Camille's house came into view. The carriage slowed to a stop. Evelyn stepped down, her legs unsteady beneath her, and walked toward the front door with a determination that surprised even herself. She raised her hand and knocked twice, firm and unhesitating. A long moment passed before the door opened. Camille stood there, dressed plainly, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, and for a brief second, surprise flickered across her face before it settled into something far more guarded. "Lady Evelyn," Camille said quietly, "I did not expect you." "I imagine not," Evelyn replied, keeping her voice steady. "May I come in? I believe we have something important to discuss." Camille's eyes searched Evelyn's face for a moment, as if trying to measure exactly how much she already knew. Then, without a word, she stepped aside and allowed the door to swing open wider. Evelyn walked inside, unaware that the conversation about to unfold would tear open a truth that had been buried for years, a truth that would not only change her wedding, but reshape everything she believed about the man she was set to marry.